In this video we're going to have a little look at how to simplify surds. Now in order to simplify surds we need to know our square numbers. So square numbers are 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 9, 4 times 4 16, 5 times 5 25, 6 times 6 36, 7 times 7 49, 8 times 8 64, 9 times 9 81, and 10 times 10 100. Now the reason that we need our square numbers is to actually simplify these surds. What I need to find is a square number that goes into it. So what square number goes into 18? So I'm going to look at my square numbers. Now I need the biggest square number possible. So the biggest square number that goes into 18 is 9. So I'm now going to write this, instead of just the square root of 18, I'm going to change it to 9 times by what is equivalent to 18, and that's 9 times 2. 9 times 2 is 18. Now the reason that I've done this is now I can actually simplify this surd, because I now have something under the square root sign that I can actually square root. So what is the square root of 9? What number times by itself gives you 9? Well, 3 times 3. So the square root of 9 is 3. So that no longer needs to be under the square root because I have square rooted it. What needs to remain under the square root is the 2, because that I cannot square root. Let's have a look at a second example with that then. So remember, we're looking for a square number that goes into 128, and it has to be the biggest square number possible. So 4 goes into 128, but actually, if I think about it, the biggest number is 64. So 64 is the biggest square number that goes into 128, and it's 64 times 2 that gives me 128. Now, I need to square root the number that I can. So I can square root 64, and I need to think about what number times by itself gives me 64. Well, that's 8. So that no longer needs to be under the square root sign because I have square rooted it, and what remains under the square root is 2. I just want to have a look at another example and show you what happens if you don't select the highest value, the highest square number that goes into 32. So I'm just going to list my square numbers here, so I've got those to work with. So I'm looking for a square number that goes into 32. So let's say 4. 4 does go into 32, and that is a square number. Now 4 times by 8 gives me 32. And I can actually square root the 4 because that gives me 2. So that no longer needs to be under the square root, and the 8 remains under the square root sign. Now because I didn't choose the biggest square number that went in, I can now do that again, because here I have 2 lots of root 8. But if I started with root 8, I can actually simplify that, because what square number goes into the square root of 8? Well, 4, and it's 4 times 2. What is the square root of 4? Well, that's 2. So I get 2 lots of root 2. So what I need to look at now then is I can simplify root 8 further. So this answer as it stands, 2 root 8, isn't in its simplest form. What I need to do is replace the root 8 with 2 root 2. So I have 2 lots of 2 root 2, because we just found that 2 root 2 was equivalent to root 8. And then what I need to do is think about, well, what's 2 lots of 2 root 2? Well, it's 4 lots of root 2. You just times those numbers together. And that is my final answer. So as you can see, it is possible to still find the simplest form when you don't choose the highest square number, but it just involves a couple more steps and can be a bit more complicated. So the best thing is to always find the highest square number that goes into your initial value to start off with.